Welcome fans and freaks, viewers and haters. I'm your Raging Canadian Critic, and here's today's review. So you're probably curious about why I'm doing a review on New Moon's second trailer. Well, because where the first trailer left me confused and a little annoyed, this trailer downright aggravated me almost from the start! Just when I thought the Twilight films couldn't possibly try and reel more people in, they've laid their bait out just for about anyone. So the trailer starts out with Edward telling the audience and Bella about the Volturi, the vampire royalty who governs the race and enforces the laws. Bella seems confused at the fact that vampires actually have laws. Of course they have laws, you moron! Why else do you think you're the only human who knows they exist? Speaking of such, Alice reminds Bella that she knows too much about their kind, and it puts them all in danger, forcing Edward to make the decision of leaving Bella behind, and he asks her not to do anything reckless. Naturally, this falls into the classic depression montage found in a lot of love story movies these days. Bella says a huge hole has been punched through her chest. Not convinced? Well, she's actually so distraught over this high school breakup, she's screaming in her bed like she's possessed. Lady, you broke up with your boyfriend. Do you realize how melodramatic you're being? You're 17 years old. Grow up. So with her boyfriend out of the picture, Bella's old friend Jacob tries to help her and tells her he would never do something like Edward did. Subtle, dude. Real subtle. Why don't you just show up on her front porch with a guitar and a heart-shaped box of chocolates while you're at it? But of course, Bella refuses to admit the fact that Edward's gone and begins seeing hallucinations of him everywhere. Now wait just a cotton-pickin' minute here. You're telling us that the effects of being dumped is so profound on her that she's been psychologically warped? This chick is insane! And to show just how crazy she is, the trailer shows that the only way she's able to see these visions of her ex-boyfriend is by putting herself through life-threatening situations. Lady, I'm serious. Go to a doctor and get some freaking help. So after Bella's latest adrenaline rush of jumping off a cliff, Jacob asks the question that's probably on everybody's mind. What were you thinking? Naturally, Bella doesn't give us an answer. This leads to, wait a second! Forget the scene that's coming up next for a moment, and let's look at the music. They're playing Moving Mountains by Two Steps from Hell. If you guys aren't familiar with the track, it's a loud, gothic background theme that's been used in the Jumper trailer, as well as a lot of YouTube fan trailers. So here's my itty-bitty question here. What is it doing in New Moon? I don't care how many useless fight scenes or freaky moments you put in this movie, it is and always will be a love story, not The Matrix. What if I took the trailer music from 300 and slapped it onto the preview for The Notebook? It wouldn't make sense. Dare I watch on? Alice then tells Bella that Edward has vanished and gone to the Volturi, who were previously mentioned earlier in the trailer, because he thinks that Bella is dead, and he's so upset over it, he actually wants them to kill him. So wait a second. You're totally willing to abandon your girlfriend for just about anyone to date or kill, but the moment you assume she's dead, without a body to prove it, you decide there's nothing to live for? And why does he need the Volturi to kill him? Not that I'd advise suicide to anyone, real or fictional, but why do you need somebody else to do it? This then follows into Bella going on a little rescue mission to Italy, where Edward is going to expose his vampire identity to the world by stepping out into the sunlight in public. First of all, with this new movie, the vampires look even paler and now have red eyes night and day. Wouldn't that tip the people off just a little bit? Secondly, just because your skin sparkles like glitter in the sunlight doesn't mean people instantly know you're a vampire. They'd probably think, wow, that guy looks like a tool. But they wouldn't think you're a bloodsucker. So with that, the trailer concludes with a wrap-up of a bunch of scenes showing the werewolves. Yeah, did you forget there was werewolves in this movie? And other characters fighting. Once that's over, the trailer's done. Finally! Over and over again, they showed shots of shirtless teenage boys walking around. No matter how much action or carnage you throw in there, this will always be for girls. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Women have as much right to have movies for their entertainment as much as we men do. What ticks me off is the fact that they're trying to lure guys in with all this action, and those of us who didn't sleep through the first movie may be unfortunate enough to watch this one. So do I have anything positive to say about this trailer? You'd probably be surprised to hear that I do. Just not a lot. From what I've seen so far, I enjoy Chris White's direction better than the direction of the first film, as well as this new vision of a less darker atmosphere like before. Another good point, unlike in the first movie, the vampires are actually scary here. In particular, I think Dakota Fanning as the new character Jane looks like she's doing a good job. And we didn't even get that much screen time of her. And finally, this also turns into better action than what we got in the first movie. Though I still do not take back my comments that this is a teen romantic film, and not some supernatural thriller flick. So overall, my opinion is simple. Stop trying to make this movie into something it's not! Welcome fans and foes, viewers and haters. I'm your Raging Canadian, and here's today's review. Well, the review for Ridley Scott's Robin Hood is gonna have to be pushed back for the time being. But don't worry, I knew that sooner or later I'd have to post a review for this trailer. Yeah, you don't even need to look at the title to figure this one out. The Twilight Saga's Eclipse. And since both the trailers are just about a minute and a half long, I figure I might as well kill two birds with one stone. Trailer number 1 opens up with Edward Cullen hugging Bella Swan in a field, promising he'll love her for every moment of forever. Maybe I could understand why all these girls go, aww, if the line didn't have such monotone delivery to it. Next, we're introduced to the Volturi vampires, with Jane at the lead, played by Dakota Fanning. And if you thought the delivery of Edward's line had no life to it, you ought to check out how Fanning acts out her dialogue. She's still human. The Volturi don't give second chances. As big of a comedy riot that I found New Moon to be, Fanning's performance as Jane was at least a small highlight for me. Here, I don't see any of the threat or twisted psyche that I enjoyed about her the last time. I see a teenager who sounds like she's reading her lines with somebody holding the script out of frame. Bella asks Edward why he's so against her becoming a vampire. Wait a minute, I thought he just said he would love her for every moment of forever. Doesn't that imply they both have to be immortal? What the frig is going on? Edward explains that if Bella became a vampire, everyone she loves will eventually die around her. Now, as understandable an argument that is, the trailer only shows Bella interacting with her mother and father while the line is spoken. Pop quiz, folks! How many children that don't die from disease, murder, or horrific accidents outlive their parents? If you said just about everybody, you are correct! Tell them what they've won, Eddie. Next up, Jacob Black enters the scene and tells Bella she wouldn't have to change for him. He loves her, and he wants her to pick him instead of Edward. Oh my gosh. The viewers aren't morons! Alright, even if you haven't seen either of the two preceding films or read any of the books, tell me that before Jacob said his last line there, you couldn't have been able to put 2 and 2 together. Reading between the lines doesn't mean you have to say it out loud. Jacob stands up to Edward and says, "You have to consider the idea that I might be better for Bella than you." Yes, Bachelor number 1, he's Nosferatu that will live till hell freezes over, but he'll love you even though he fights the urge to drink your blood like it was grape Kool-Aid. Bachelor number 2, he's a werewolf who's obsessed with killing vampires, transforms into a giant dog when he's angry, and can never seem to find a shirt for 70% of his screen time. Meanwhile, Bella tells Edward that she found them. Now, I know who Bella's talking about. Anybody who's read the books or seen both the movies know who she's talking about. But does anybody who's taking their first gander at the franchise know who she's talking about? You don't have to retell us the whole story. All you have to do is give the viewers a name. Just say it. Victoria. It's that simple. It doesn't even help when you recasted the actress. The trailer then finishes with Edward and Jacob saying they'll protect Bella from harm. Once again, from the perspective of anybody who's just entering this franchise, harm from who? Who is she? Why does she want to hurt Bella? What the frig is going on? Time for trailer number 2. We open up with Jacob appearing before anybody else. Yeah, why would we open up with our female protagonist when we can get a good glimpse of our studly male werewolf? Jacob tells Bella he's there to warn her about something, but Edward says, "You should leave. Now." Wow, I think I've actually heard third graders chanting, "Stop hitting yourself," more authoritative than this guy. Edward tells Bella that in Seattle there's been a series of disappearances and murders. You may also notice that this trailer does something that the other movies didn't do, making the movie look like a horror film. And I'm sure it has nothing to do whatsoever with the fact that the same guy who directed 30 Days of Night grabbed the steering wheel for this installment. At the Cullen house, Carlisle says, "Someone's creating an army." "An army of vampires?" Bella asks. "No, an army of constipated muskrats!" With the army coming for them, the Cullens realize a fight is bound to happen, which means people are probably gonna die. Naturally, Jacob and his wolf pack volunteer to join the fight, so long as they get to kill some vampires. Yes, ladies, why focus on the fact that this character is clearly addicted to killing people, and would probably gnaw through the neck of Bella's boyfriend if he had the chance? I mean, come on, look at those abs! Out of the lake, several vampires come out ready for battle. Meanwhile, the Volturi watch from the background. "It's time," one of them says. "Time for what?" "Yes, it is," Jane replies. "Time for what?" Next we cut to, oh, you're friggin' kidding me. A huge battle with the Cullens and werewolves against the vampire army while a gothic choir blasts in the background. Stop making this look like an action franchise. It's a love story. Up in the snowy soundstage, mountains, Bella is confronted by a shirtless Jacob. You know, we've joked about this for a while, but I think this scene has officially confirmed it. Jacob is going out of his way to make sure he has an excuse for taking his shirt off. The world will cease to rotate unless Lautner is semi-nude. The trailer finishes with Edward knocking down a tree with that red-headed vampire clutched to it, who decides to be an idiot and hold on to it until it's just about to hit the ground. I say red-headed vampire instead of Victoria because, hey, if the trailer doesn't think it's important to say who she is and what she wants, why should I tell you? Rating for trailer number 1 is 2 out of 10. It's just boring. They don't even offer you the deception that you're gonna get some hard action in this movie. It's just scene after scene of people in fields telling each other their social problems instead of showing it. Rating for trailer number 2 is 5 out of 10. As much as I say the irrelevant action is definitely overhyped, it at least gives us something interesting to look at. The dialogue's at least decent, but the performances remain very dry. But I think they've come up with enough stupid ways to overhype this movie. After all the shirtless Lautner scenes, the overblown stunts, and the melodramatic dialogue, what could they possibly do to draw in more audience members? IMAX? IMAX? You're actually gonna put a teen romance movie in IMAX? This movie reconfirmed why I'll never understand Twilight. This is gotta be this is the staple in the fact that Twilight is going to be as much relatable to me as Cantonese. I would like to point out that these movies have potential. Hear me out. These movies do have potential in being appealing to everyone. Being appealing to a culture. Being appealing to women who want a genre that's, you know, the vampire romance genre. But they don't do it because they don't know what to focus on. They go for interesting stuff. There's a plot point here that never gets developed with Edward. Edward, apparently, if you didn't know this, was a serial killer, or a rapist serial killer. He killed rapists. He was not a rapist and a serial killer. He like killed pedophiles, rapists, and people like that back when he was first a vampire. Fun fact. But they don't go anywhere with it. They just mention it out of the blue, have their montage of flashbacks, and don't do anything interesting with it. It's never important again. They do something like introduce randomly vampire bachelor party. But we never see what happens at said bachelor party. I would like to know what the undead Nosferatu do for like their last day of singlehood. But no, we never get to find out what happens. You see what I mean? Twilight, especially Breaking Dawn Part 1, over-dramatizes stuff that they think we should care about. But they never establish why we should regard these things as important. For instance, there's a story arc here of Jacob wanting to become a pack leader, take his right as a leader. Why should we care about this? You've never established before that this should be cared about in previous movies. Never established before in the story that we should care about this. Instead, you just have a random scene crammed in here where Jacob in his werewolf form just stands up on his hind legs and goes, "I will not take orders from you!" Yeah, and this is supposed to be big news? Wow! Okay, you see what I'm saying? And in a scene like that, it's a good example of why the person who's in charge of Twilight's movies music, they are picking these songs blindly in this movie. I'm serious. You could not have, these must have been tracks picked at random. They really have no emotional mixing with their performances, the direction, or the screenplay in anything that you see on the screen. They are throwing you off like whiplash. They never make any connection with the scene. I could have just randomly crammed in like frigging Bach into a scene of like Bella and Edward making out, and it would make as much sense as the music selection in this film. So, and speaking of Bella and Edward making out, this whole film is regarding two things: Bella and Edward's wedding, and Bella and Edward's wedding, Bella and Edward's honeymoon, and third, Bella and Edward's pregnancy with their unholy demon child. So, yeah. And Moses is like, his jaw's dropping in the background. Demon child? Yeah. So, yeah, in the wedding, they have everybody come together for this happy occasion because it's so nice when you have a gunshot forks wedding. You know, or shotgun. You know what I mean. So they have the wedding, and everybody's happy except Six-Pack Jacob. And so then they have the honeymoon, where we find out an interesting thing about Bella. Bella Swan is a nympho. And you know what? Okay, when everybody hears the term nympho, they, you know, jab each other in the shoulder and go, "Oh, dude, that chick's a nympho, man. Score with her. Woohoo! Party over here." No. Bella is seriously a mentally diseased nymphomaniac. The woman is being battered and bruised night after night on her honeymoon. And she wants more sex. Am I wrong here to say that she really could be doing other things with her time other than endangering her health? Edward and her are like destroying the bedroom, for crying out loud. And she never thinks, maybe I could be, having a picnic with my husband. Maybe we could be doing something other than frigging ready to break my body in half. So after their wild, kinky vampire sex, Bella becomes pregnant. And there's only one, all of this event, all the events in the third act, which, by the way, it's only until the third act that any of this movie becomes interesting. All the events in the third act could have been prevented if vampires knew anything about sex ed. Vampires, especially Edward, apparently have no idea what birth control means. It's called a condom, moron! He really just thinks, so if I have sex with Bella, then all we'll do is express our love and we'll become closer together without any repercussions. Doy! And then they have this freaky pregnancy where Bella is getting the fat and life getting sucked out of her. And Edward's screaming at Bella, "You've given me no choice! No, you're so selfish, Bella! I'm gonna go cry in a corner with Jacob! Hold me, Mr. Black!" And he's acting like the pregnancy was her choice or something. For a man who was raised by a doctor, this guy has no idea how the human anatomy functions. And the thing is, I would say, and I know what you're saying, she has a choice. She could, get rid of the baby. Except I'm pretty sure that they established beforehand that the baby, that needles won't puncture the fetus. And even if they didn't, I wouldn't be surprised if it couldn't, because this thing is pounding inside of her womb like it's the frigging Hulk. I'm not even kidding you. It's destroying her body. Her bones are being broken like they're made of friggin' paper mache. And it's ridiculous. I wouldn't want to stick a needle into that chick's belly. I wouldn't want to go 10 feet in front of her. So the movie turns into the whole standoff because the wolves want to kill the baby. And Jacob wants to protect her, so he betrays them and he sides with the vampires. So it turns into a whole standoff between the wolves and the vampires. And it's a pretty bloody standoff, except that the blood really doesn't happen in the standoff. The majority of the blood is in the birth scene. And I suppose, but here, you know what? Okay. If you added up all the amount of blood in the Twilight saga, Eclipse, New Moon, and Twilight, you wouldn't be at half the amount of blood in frigging Breakdawn Part 1. Part 1! It's ridiculous. And you admit, if it was a standoff, like I said, it would be interesting. The problem is, they don't add any of the blood where it should belong. It's just this bloody birth scene. And this is a very stretched out movie. They make nothing really happen that's interesting until it's an hour and a half in. I'm okay, so after sex scene number 8, do we get something when's the aggression happen? When's the violence happen? I'd like to see more action than just Edward thrusting into Bella's you-know-what.
They're trying to...
Oh, shut up, Moses.
The fans
shut up.
Hey!
And, so... Shut up. So, the vampires, there's just not a lot here that happens with the vampires or the werewolves. And I would say that this is a very passable installation to the saga. They really, if you skip between Eclipse and Breaking Dawn Part 2, then I doubt there's very much that happens in Breaking Dawn Part 2 that you can just have somebody explain to you within 2 minutes, and then you'll catch up. So I'm going to give this a rating of 1.5 out of 5. And by the way, if you ever find yourself in a Nosferatu wedding where your in-laws happen to be vampires, don't let the vampires have a lot of control over what's going to happen at your wedding. Because vampires are apparently control freaks, according to people like Alice. Because Bella is like with her mom on her wedding day. Her mom's getting emotional, and so she goes to hug Bella. And Alice pushes her away, saying, No, you're going to ruin my masterpiece. A mother wants to comfort the bride on the day she's going to leave her family forever. Screw you, you heartless undead!
Alright, one thing I want to get off the bat right before I start here, okay? I could be doing better movie reviews with my time right now. I got the Terminator Marathon, I still got some of your guys' requests to do. It's Oscar season, I could be watching Lincoln right now. You know, movie adaptation of one of the greatest American presidents in history. But instead I am reviewing, thankfully for the last time, Breaking Dawn Part 2, the final installment of the Twilight saga. So let's recap first of all, where we've kind of established with these characters. We've got Bella Swan, the mopey teenager who has as much personality as a toenail, married to Edward Cullen. She's given birth to the Antichrist incarnate, Renesmee, and has become a vampire as per the pressure of her husband. When there's been multiple occasions and plenty of time to do it before. She's complained about doing it before, but nobody just can think about a decision before they act on it in this series. First of all, let me state the plot of this movie, okay? The hybrid vampire child Renesmee has alerted the Volturi. The Volturi don't like a mortal child because, they claim that it's because, A, the child doesn't grow up, which is a legitimate concern. It would cause attention and get some, attention unwanted by the, on the public who doesn't understand. And B, their thirst for human blood is unquenchable, and they slaughter hundreds. They've shown flashbacks of this. That's what happens to all newborn vampires, and you demonstrated in Eclipse that the Volturi could care less about slaughtering people, especially Seattle, apparently. I guess the Volturi just don't like Seattle. They get into this whole thing where they're like, oh crap, we gotta kill this abomination. This is a destruction to our existence. We're gonna start to go to war for this stuff. Come on, Volturi, let's get together. We're gonna march on Forks, Washington and start a war. Holy crap, this is actually really, really big. This is fundamental stuff right here. The Cullens decide that with their safety in jeopardy, with the safety of this child in jeopardy, they're going to mass together an army of vampire friends from Africa, from Egypt, from Brazil, from Ireland, every stereotype you can imagine. All this amount of characters, which are just so out of depth in terms of story-wise. These people are just so boring. There's so many filler characters, and you're like, wow, I'd like to know what that guy's like. You're talking about that guy for 5 minutes. Already, he's got more of an interesting story than you people have in the last 5 movies. Why are we still focusing on Bella and Edward? Legitimate question. If this is a story about why their daughter is so important, why their daughter deserves to live, why are we still focusing on the two people that you've beaten us over the head for the last 5 movies? These people are destined to be together. They deserve to live forever in their immortal and holy lives. Now, let me say something right here. Peer pressure has been a method of most recurrence on the Cullens' part. They have pressured so many people into doing what they want. They mope. They get on their knees. They blackmail. They manipulate people into coming to their cause. They've done this on regular occasions. So when the Volturi do it, it's suddenly a bad thing? You're telling me when the Volturi do something that is just as much a crime as what the Cullens have done, it's suddenly a sin. That we have suddenly gotten to unethical territory here. That these guys deserve any bad fate they receive. These guys are doing the exact same thing as our supposed protagonist. And by the way, let me get on that boat right here. First of all, Bella friggin' Swan, right when she becomes a vampire, guess what she does? They're like, okay, you're gonna go eat. You gotta go taste some human blood. You've been out for 2 days, your body's recuperating, you gotta go taste some blood. Okay, so she goes to go get a deer. She decides a deer is not worth her appetite, so she decides to maul a mountain lion to death. Holy crap! That's not even enough to sate her hunger. A mountain climber is dangling one hand off a cliff. She can hear and see this guy a mile away. She wants to kill him within the first 5 minutes of the story. This is a character that we have been following the perspective of through this stupid series since film 1. And you're expecting me to have any sympathy for somebody who's really ready to kill someone they don't even know just to eat them within 5 minutes. So they get in this whole argument thing where Volturi are ready to come, and the Cullens are like, even giving the option, let's get Renesmee somewhere safe, okay? Let's get her somewhere where we can, protect her, where she can be protected by a pedophile werewolf. Because that's a great idea. Leave Jacob alone with Renesmee. I'm sure nothing will come of that. Can you imagine what this guy would be like with unsupervised attention on this child? And they get into this whole thing where they're like, okay, we can give this Renesmee a chance to live because they won't be able to find her. Meanwhile, we're fighting for her freedom. Something heroic. Nope. They don't hide her. They think about hiding her, but they don't go through with it. And for the life of me, I can't understand why. When it comes to your child's safety, I think you'd put all logic or rationale aside. I think you'd want to get them to a secure place instead of just standing around there so they can mope around with the rest of the family. No, they're still bringing her along for the family reunion from hell. And by the way, they bring her to the battle, the front lines. Forget the fact that she is, a vampire or half vampire. Forget the fact that you people are stupid. That all the characters in this story are idiots. That all these characters ever care about are their passions. They have no sense of morality, no sense of right and wrong. It's just whatever they feel like doing, they do. Especially if it's something they strongly desire. On a, ethical sensation, these people are a true character study of how far down you can go. But they bring her to the battle. You're going to show a 9-year-old girl. She's not even 9 years old. She's like 3 months old. She's just 9-year-old in appearance. You're going to show a 3-month-old girl the sight of her family and friends being ripped apart in front of her. Why? What reason does she have to be there? What possible benefit? You're serving her to Volturi on a silver plate for one thing, but you're showing her the most horrible experience she can ever experience in her immortal life. That's wonderful. That's great. So they decide to get in this whole war. The war starts, and if you know the books, apparently the war didn't happen. All right? The war was just a big talk. They talked it out, and they decided to walk away. Both sides decide that they've had enough, and they've settled the matter when nothing is really settled, and they just live happily ever after. In the Twilight Saga, the bad guys and the good guys live happily ever after. That's interesting. But here, what happens is Carlisle, the guy who is like the doctor vampire, the father of the patriarch of the Cullen family, he charges at Aro for almost killing Alice because Alice comes to the ridiculous conclusion, the vampires are going to kill us no matter what we say? Oh! Bravo, Sherlock. And he gets his head ripped off by Aro. And I'm sitting there in the theater like, jeez, hardcore, dude. They're actually going somewhere with this. They're actually taking some creative licensing here. making bold, creative decisions from the source material. Source material, which sucks, by the way, but they're adapting it into a logical decision. Something that would make sense in a movie, a war movie. And then Jasper dies, and one of the werewolves dies. I don't really care which one, I don't know which one. You know, even as a side of me is going, die, 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 you pigs! Another side of me is going, you know what, in a literary perspective, this makes sense. If these people were wanting to fight in a battle, not just the bad guys would die. In order to get what you want, in order to strive for a greater accomplishment, you have to make sacrifices. Casualties mount up. And then Aro and like all the vampire Volturi guys get killed. And I'm like, holy cow, this is actually intense. I'm actually liking the direction of the script here. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? I hope you're sitting down for this. I really do. It's all a vision of the future, an alternative future. It's an alternative ending. I repeat, the events which just preceded didn't happen. They didn't take place. It's a lie. It's a lie. They pulled the "it was all a dream" card. One of the stupidest plot twist cliches in cinema history. And you know what? The alternative ending to this makes much more sense because Bella and Edward didn't get killed. Renesmee didn't get killed. Characters that died would have had like no story arc whatsoever. And at the end of the real ending, there's no closure to this saga. They're just like, yeah, the Volturi are gone now. They're probably going to be back. And this is supposedly the final installment. What was the point in shoving that there if it adds up to nothing? Because logically, what is Carlisle going to do for another 100 years that he hasn't done already? What's Jasper going to do for another 100 years? Where do these characters go at the end of this story? Nowhere. They just hug each other, and then they're cut from the script. You know, if the protagonist gets what they want, if they ensure that the child is going to be safe, and I hate these characters, by the way, then why didn't you make that creative decision? It's the final installment. People are going to go see the movie no matter what because they're twihards. My gosh, it's ridiculous how that's the level of manipulation this movie gets to. That you got actually invested in these characters like I was, and then it's just, you know, the rug's pulled right up from under your feet. I was ready to walk out of that theater, man. But that being said, I come back to a resolution that is put the spring back in my step. The franchise is over! It's